There is climate change. It's called the seasons.
Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel Cook. We will be reacting to a new video today, so make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's get into the video.
I always kind of laugh when people try to argue that climate change isn't real and it's just part of the leftist agenda, as if we have something to gain by it being real, as if we want it to be real. Do you have any idea how badly I want to be wrong about this? Do you have any idea how much relief I would feel if papers were published demonstrating that we misinterpreted the data and all of our climate models were wrong and will actually go back into a normal climate cycle within the next few years? Do you have any idea how happy that would make me? It would almost make me consider having kids. It would check off one of about 20 boxes anyway. I am stressing over here because over half the country just doesn't believe in it or thinks it's not a big deal. And it is bad for my mental health. Why do you think most left-leaning people have higher rates of depression and anxiety? Ignorance truly is bliss.
I fear I'm about to sound really stupid, but I'm asking because I want to understand. This comment is on a video of me talking about how cold it is in Chicago, but I thought climate change, aka global warming, was supposed to make places warmer. So why is it making Chicago colder?
There was a white woman that got on here and was saying, when climate change gets to us, none of this is going to matter. And I don't know exactly what she was referring to, so this isn't directed towards her. But if you saw that and you came away from it thinking that things like race and class and these axes of oppression wasn't going to matter because climate change is coming for us all, you are sorely mistaken. Because the level of vulnerability someone has in these climate disasters is absolutely determined by race and class, and how other axes of oppression like gender, nationality, sexuality modify those experiences of race and class. Whether or not you have the resources to rebuild is absolutely determined by race and class. Even whether people have empathy for you to help you out in your time of need is determined by race and class and its modifiers. In 2021, when the winter storm came to Texas, my home was completely destroyed. We were able to get by because my partner and I are integrated in a community that came out to help us and provide us resources, but way too many people do not have that. And the wild part is, even though we had access to those resources, we were still dehumanized based on our race and class background status. Both of us have advanced degrees. My partner and I both have PhDs from a very high-ranking institution, and we were still mistreated. The Courtyard Marriott in downtown Austin, where we were staying and we had the money to stay, they treated us like we were less than human. They didn't know we had advanced degrees until after the treatment had already occurred. They just saw two black folks, and I'm not even going to describe the situation, just know that it was horrible. I felt less than human. Again, I don't know if that is what that creator was trying to say, that climate change is coming for us all, so we need to forget everything about race, class, and these axes of oppression. So this isn't really for that person, but it's for any of you who might have seen that video and that's where your mind immediately went to. Don't. And as these climate disasters continue to increase in frequency, how people are getting help will continue to be determined by race and class status and how other experiences of identity and oppression modify that. Short term, drop links to mutual aid funds or any type of resource links that we know is going towards people who actually need the help. Long term, take back control of your labor.
Environmentalists of the internet, I have a question. Why is this better than having plastic bags? I get my prescriptions delivered. I get them monthly. They deliver it in these totes with zippers on them, by the way. So they're not cheap to make. Every single time I get these. Surely this can't be better than plastic. I feel like I'm missing something.
Can I just rant for a second? It is May 22nd and I live in the New England area, and I had on my big winter coat today. May 22nd, y'all. I literally want to cry, and it's not even an exaggeration. I literally am gonna cry. It was literally summer 2 weeks ago. It was hot. Everyone was outside. Neighbors were friendly. Now we're back. It's New England, y'all, and people are mean and grumpy and cranky because it is freezing outside and it's been raining for days. Not even the fun summer rain. No, cold raining all week. I haven't seen the sun in days. I have not seen the sun. I haven't opened my windows. I'm in my luteal phase. Y'all, this sucks. Okay, and I just had to vent. I had to rant. I'm literally making hot soup late May. Memorial Day weekend, nothing's going on. Who's doing a cookout when it's cold outside and rainy? Nobody. Beach trip, literally not happening. It's too cold. If you live in a warmer area like Florida, Texas, I'm so jealous of you right now. Enjoy the sun, soak it all in. Go into your phone and put in Boston on your weather app and just see what we've been dealing with.
With most of my family living in Laurel County, Kentucky, I was pretty freaked out this morning when I first got up. I tried calling my mother. I didn't get an answer. Was finally able to reach my father. He had been checking on the rest of the family, and luckily, everyone survived. However, people either lost everything in that moment or lost their lives. Storms are getting worse and worse, but you know, climate change isn't real. And now, the administration, the GOP, the Pumpkin Oompa Loompa are going to cut FEMA funds and throw it back to the states as things are getting worse and worse. People aren't going to be able to rebuild. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? My family got lucky, but many did not. We were hit by Helene, devastated by Helene, not as bad as Asheville. And we're 4 hours inland from the coast. People still haven't recovered from Helene. The GOP intends to destroy as many lives as it can. And it's doing a fabulous job. Stay safe, friends. It's going to be a long, hard storm season. Thank God my family's okay. Stay safe.
When it comes to climate change, I think that both sides are right. Human beings have certainly exacerbated climate change. But on the other hand, climate change is cyclical. Remember that. The planet has been changing climates for billions of years. This planet is much older than human beings are. It is only in the past few hundred years that we have really exacerbated climate change. The Earth's climate changes naturally without human intervention. It's been like this for billions of years. Have we made it worse? Of course. I'm not denying that. And if we are no longer here, the climate will continue to change with or without us.
Good morning, sunshine. 2030 is going to be the year of the apocalypse, and shit's going to hit the fan within that decade, and here's all of the evidence that I have for it. Let's start out strong with climate change. 2030 has always been a crucial deadline. The IPCC continues to report that by 2030 we have to cut global emissions by 50% in order to keep temperatures from rising above 1.5 degrees Celsius, because when they hit 2 degrees Celsius, irreversible damage is inevitable. Think like glaciers that obviously can't be refrozen, rising sea levels, rising sea temperatures, agricultural failure, etc. Financial crisis and economic collapse. Social Security is projected to run out of funds between 2030 and 2035. Social Security provides aid to elderly people and disabled people, and as we know, the boomers are a huge population of people that are getting elderly and retiring. So the young people that are working right now all pay into Social Security and will only be able to collect a small portion of the benefits that older generations were promised. And not only that, but they're going to leave us with a huge national debt from partially subsidizing these programs. And yeah, we know that the United States has a huge national debt problem, but by 2030, the global debt, the entire global economy, will surpass 100% of global GDP. And this is not the first time this has happened, because global debt has fluctuated over 100% during times of crisis, like post-World War II and in 2020 during the pandemic. But this is going to be happening under relatively stable conditions, given that nothing disastrous happens like those two events. It's like we're trying to recover from just a stable decline instead of a disaster. Because of these conditions, a lot of economists have forecasted that we're going to be approaching another Great Depression in the 2030s. And because AI is going to be intruding into literally every aspect of our lives, the unemployment rate might go up. What are people going to do for work? I mean, it just continues to snowball. Oh, and I almost forgot the asteroid that's going to be hitting the moon or Earth in the early 2030s. So
climate change isn't real. The government's controlling the weather. My brother in Christ, it's over 100 degrees in Phoenix today. And it's October. We've got wildfires in Wyoming, flash floods in Appalachia, a hurricane in Florida, and people are cooking out in the Southwest. This is not some sort of act of God to punish Americans, and this is not some sort of naturally occurring phenomenon. This is the climate change that fossil fuel companies discovered decades ago and then covered up because they did not want to take any accountability, and now we are all paying for it. And I know it's scary, and I know it's hard to confront because it's like, fuck, what do we do about it? But like, the first step is acknowledging that it's happening. I firmly believe that people should be more worried about climate than pretty much any other political issue right now, but a lot of people aren't because they literally don't think it's a problem.
So as Australia heads into more and more natural disasters, we've currently got devastating flooding happening in New South Wales. But on the other side, in South Australia, we have a devastating drought going on. And in the midst of all of these natural disasters, housing and property have never been more expensive. So pretty much everywhere you want to live is uninhabitable at this point. So we've made the world an unlivable place because of devastating natural disasters. But in the same breath, we've made all property unaffordable.
I was laying out in the sun today thinking about climate change, as one does. It made me realize that I think a lot of people have something extremely backwards about climate change. We're always talking about save the planet, we're destroying the planet. And I think this has created this perception that if we don't slow down climate change, the planet is going to be destroyed. What I think a lot of people miss is that if we don't slow down climate change, the human species is going to go extinct. The planet is going to be here. Earth is much more resilient than the human species. Everything that is showing up as a result of climate change and our overuse of resources on this planet, from global plant pandemics, natural disasters, sea levels rising, these are all indicators of catastrophes that are going to eradicate the human race so that Earth can then reset and rebuild itself. We are so cute to think that like we're gonna destroy the planet and like we're gonna go to Mars and like in the background Earth is gonna be burning on fire and we're like off to Mars to start our new civilization. Honey, that is not how this works. And I think it could be a helpful reframe for people to realize that not slowing down and reversing climate change is not going to destroy the planet Earth. Planet Earth is going to be here. She's that girl. She's good. It is going to destroy you and all of our future generations. And the path to extinction is miserable as hell, and we are already witnessing it.
Let's unpack climate anxiety. We are living in times that can often feel overwhelming and paralysing. Many of us are realising just how fragile our planet is, especially at the hands of ecological destruction. Climate anxiety describes being worried about the future of our planet due to the climate crisis, and it affects everyone differently. It can leave you feeling helpless, afraid, angry and depressed. And for many of us, it is a constant fear at the back of our minds. And climate anxiety disproportionately affects children and young people, as well as marginalised communities that are more likely to be impacted by global warming. So how can we deal with it? Although we can feel compelled to catch up on pessimistic news, often it's better for our mental health to focus on finding solutions. Focus on the small changes that you can make in your everyday life to make a difference. Share and follow positive movements that encourage others to take action. And finally, know your limits. Everything is digital nowadays, but we should normalise taking a break from our phones. Be kind to yourself. We're all trying our best to save our planet, and it would be impossible for every individual to focus on and solve every single issue.
You know how there are some people who can only acknowledge that there's a problem if they are actually faced with the inconvenience of having a problem? And even then, they will only acknowledge it as a problem if it's one that they cannot solve for them specifically. A lot of people who deny climate change exists are in tax brackets high enough to afford central air conditioning. If you are unable to afford or have access to air conditioning, honestly, during the summer, climate change is probably not going to be on your mind as much than if you are like affronted with actually seriously hot temperatures all day, every single day that you can't get out of. Because the harsh reality for people who cannot afford air conditioning in those conditions is overheating. Like here in Oregon, temperatures are going to get well over 100 today. And I can't imagine what people with absolutely no access to air conditioning are doing to manage. Like what can you even do? They don't give us air conditioning with our apartments here. We weren't able to afford an air conditioner until just a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know what we would do. Like we would have to take our cats with us somewhere. But that's just not a thing that a lot of other people think about when it comes to this kind of stuff. And for a lot of people who are unable to access a lot of everyday things that a lot of people who have the money to afford it can access, this is just like something that we are very evidently facing, like very, very evidently facing.
We didn't already know, which is very likely given that this has no news coverage. The IPCC just dropped a new report, and it again tells us what we already knew. Greenhouse gas emissions must peak in the next 3 years. 1.5 degrees is very likely, and limiting to below 2 degrees is also going to be a lot harder. But what I want to focus on is what this report is telling us to do. We need to be making major transitions, which means in this country to stop focusing on mansion watering down already watered down climate policy introduced by Biden. We need to start advocating for what science tells us we actually need. It turns out those policies are popular because they uplift everyone. Imagine decarbonizing our public schools and dealing with the racial inequities of our public education system. Imagine a Green New Deal for public housing. It creates upwards of 241,000 jobs every year and actually deals with our homelessness issue in this country. Or a Green New Deal for transportation that will build cities for people and not cars. This is what we deserve, it's what we need, it's what people want. This is scary, yes, but there's hope as long as we advocate for the right things.
Climate change is a hoax? How come no one ever told me? By the way, my name is Norm Leo. I'm an atmospheric scientist. You can go check out my LinkedIn page if you want. I have a bachelor's in teaching. I did a year in physics and math, and I have a graduate degree in atmospheric science. I also have other studies, but that's not the point right now. So I've only been on TikTok for 2 weeks. 2 weeks! And I've received lots of messages saying, climate change is a hoax. So, thanks for informing me. I up until this point, I didn't know. After learning about the proxies like ice cores for paleoclimatology, after doing so much calculus and learning how we build climate models, numerical models, after experimenting in a lab with 2 different Erlenmeyers, and one had a higher concentration of CO2, and seeing that the one with the highest concentration did have the warmest temperature, after seeing the ice melt on glaciers, after looking at the satellite data from the Arctic and seeing so much ice melting year after year after year, it's a good thing that so many people wanted to warn me that climate change is a hoax. Hashtag sarcasm. Follow for more.
People deadass say climate change ain't real, but it's 55 degrees at the end of November in Chicago. I'm like, the math ain't mathin'. The math ain't mathin'.
You aren't ready to talk about the environmental impacts of the genocide on Gaza. The United States dropped around 15 tons of explosives per square kilometer of Vietnam over an 8-year period of time. Israel has dropped 275 tons per square kilometer of Gaza in only a year and a half, a figure that is higher by a factor of 18 in a space that is roughly the size of Manhattan.
Wars of any kind will negatively impact the climate, and especially with a lot of bombings and things like that, that will destroy so much soil. It will ruin farming, land, and all kinds of things. Even the napalm bombings literally ruined so much of the land in Vietnam during the war. It destroyed acres, hectares of land.
So with everything going on, the Northeast is also dealing with a lot of snow. Not as much as we've gotten in past years due to climate change, but still snow nonetheless. If you are somebody that shovels, salts, or manages buildings during a snowstorm, I need you to listen to me for a second, okay? This is really important, particularly for disabled people. I say this every year, but it is worth repeating. If you're somebody that shovels snow or salts, and you have a ramp in your building, if you're shoveling or salting ramps, it's really important that you double salt the bottom of ramps, because all that water will drain to the bottom, and then overnight it will slick over as ice. Another thing is that if you manage buildings or clean buildings, I think it's important to refrain from any sort of wax-based product on flooring, particularly at the entrances of buildings, because the salt mixed with water, mixed with the wax, it creates a slip and slide that really doesn't ever dry all day. Hope that helps, everyone.
I'm a New Yorker. I've seen the climate clock. We have 5 years and like 180 days until climate change becomes so bad that it's irreversible. What am I supposed to do? Can someone do something? Can someone do something? The billionaires, millionaires, hey, do something. Because I can't do anything. I use a glass straw, so fucking what? I take the bus, I take the train, I take public transportation when I can. I adopted a walrus a couple years ago. They're fine now. I recycle. I clean things before I recycle. I'm a tiny little person.
So I live in the county where the massive flooding happened in Maryland. And you know what we don't have? We don't have AmeriCorps members anymore who could help with the long-lasting effects of the flooding, like cleanup and handing out meals and necessary supplies that people no longer have. Because in those areas that were affected, they do not have access to water. There's a water line break and they were told, come get bottled water from these different locations because that's what we have right now. So a big service that could have been provided was AmeriCorps members who could help with cleanup and helping to get supplies out, etc., etc., etc. And we no longer have that. Good job, America. We're doing great.
I totally agree. I think that people should be willing to suffer for the climate. And a simple little thing that we can all do to minimize our carbon footprint is to start eating bugs. I started an all-bug diet last year, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a little hard to get used to. But it is so sustainable and so worth it. Now, I'm able to share meals with my bearded dragon. It has been an amazing bonding experience for us. But yeah, don't go nuclear. It is by far the cleanest energy, but hello, Chernobyl, Fukushima. You know, when bad things happen in the past, we should just leave things alone and not try to work things out. That's progress. I mean, why go nuclear when we have windmills and solar? They work very well and in pretty much every climate, and are definitely a viable source of energy for Canadian winters, especially on calm, cloudy days. Anyway, I really hope you guys consider suffering for the climate like I do. And if you don't, then I think we should create policies to force you to suffer.
Check the timestamps because I can give you 6 off the top of my head with receipts. Let's start in 1957 when we predicted that the oceans would start getting acidic because of the carbon dioxide exchange with the atmosphere. Came true. 1981 global warming due to carbon dioxide, which, yeah, true. 1984 was the first real work on rising sea levels, which was surprisingly accurate. 1988, we predicted changes in bird migration patterns, which came true. 1990, we started making predictions about the melting polar ice caps, which came true. And as we move further and further into the modern era, our predictions are getting better and more accurate. In 2012, we started predicting the increase in adverse weather events, which is literally happening right before our eyes. Climate change is real, it's measurable, it's happening, it's now, much of it is irreversible. And honestly, I really don't understand climate deniers, because you really don't have to change your own behaviors all that much. All you have to do is start holding governments and corporations accountable. They do most of the pollution. They do all of the regulation. They're the ones that matter in this argument. The corporations have convinced us that using plastic straws and watering our lawn is ruining the world, when really it's them doing 90+% of the damage.
Each time I see Israel drop these 5,000-pound bombs on neighborhoods and totally obliterate buildings into dust, I get this jolt, feeling of despair for wasting resources. The same feeling that you get when you see an oil spill and you see all this marine life being washed up on the coast covered in sludge. To yourself, like, what the fuck are we doing to this planet? About these poor innocent creatures that we're also sharing the planet with. It goes without saying that the human loss is devastating and catastrophic. And if you've seen my other videos, I talk a lot about that. And I do see these explosions in these like huge smoke and fire. My mind goes to how many animals did they blow up in this process? What about all the chemicals that are coming out of these bombs and going into their waterways and the oceans? What are they doing to the biodiversity of the environment? Every time they're dropping these massive bombs filled with chemicals, poisonous gases. You might think that it won't affect you because it's on the other side of the world. Don't forget that all our oceans are connected. What happens to all the rubble, all the furniture that gets blown up? Where does that go? Does that go to landfill? What are the animals feeling and thinking when they hear these massive explosions? That the decibels must be so high that it would probably kill them. Where are all the environmentalists? Where are all the climate change activists? Why aren't you saying something about this?
Imagine you were able to give a survey to every single person on the planet and ask them, do you believe we should do something about climate change in a radical way or not? Just a yes or no answer. Call this an ecological wager. You're putting all your chips on one or the other. There's absolutely no in between. If you fully believe that climate change is able to be altered, it's gonna take not just half, but your entire being. Whereas if you say no, and there's nothing that we can do, and you fully believe that in yourself, then you should just do nothing and accept the futility. Maybe get some pleasure in just waiting for the destruction. But that's better than a purgatory where you're being slightly dishonest to yourself. To savor the moment or to solve for a future. Do you give up or do you go all in?
So, my coat is in my backpack as I'm walking home. A nice little mile jog. The reason why my coat is in my backpack is because it's 70 fucking degrees. In the literal middle of fucking winter, and I'm so sick of this goddamn shit!
Alright, so we're going to knock out this talking point in about a minute, so let's go. This idea that the banks simply wouldn't give out these risky loans to people knowing that the investment could be completely wiped out is ignoring the 2008 housing market crisis, but we're focusing on climate change. And in that regard, Florida exists. In my state of Florida, we have beachfront and oceanfront property all over the state. But you know what we also get on a regular basis? Hurricanes and tropical storms. And a good enough tropical storm can still cause major flooding and property damage. But despite those risk factors, beachfront property and oceanfront property in Florida is the most valued thing here. If banks truly weren't willing to take the chance, almost no one would live on or near the beach. The Florida Keys, they would be entirely empty. Almost everyone would be living inland. There are entire cities in California that are built on or near the San Andreas fault line. By your logic, they wouldn't be there either.
Okay, let's not get political here, but let's have an honest, logical conversation. Florida is flooding right now. And to say Florida doesn't go through this every couple of years is ridiculous, because every couple of years there have been hurricanes, atrocious weather, ungodly things going on. It's craziness in Florida. But that state is going to vote Republican. It's going to vote red. And voting red is basically, let's just be factually correct, is saying climate change is a hoax. When literally they're experiencing it to the umpteenth degree. They're literally going to have to swim from now on to get around in their state. And again, it'll happen in a couple of years. It's a cycle that repeats. But we're hearing and seeing climate change all across the country. Epic heat waves, places that have never been so hot ever, rain in places you shouldn't. It's October right now and it's 100 degrees. It's supposed to be fall. What is going on? I just think it's fascinating how people make decisions, what they find important in their lives. And our planet dying should be the most important thing, but it's not.
One of the biggest issues that I see personally is that climate change has become a hustle. They raise all of these funds and we don't know what happens to the money. We don't know the impacts of the money. How much money can you get to do a job that will take hundreds of years to do? Do you know how much money has been made from this whole climate impacting? Part of it is true, part of it is a hustle, part of it is lies, and it's all mixed together right there. Some of these people, they don't come in good faith to help. They come to use it as a hustle, to take money from people and to live large.
It's extremely just like sad how many people still don't believe in climate change. Like, I don't know what else the earth, the atmosphere, whatever you want to say, can throw at us before we say, hey, maybe we should have took that shit seriously. We have really fucked up the planet, and for what? Storms are getting out of hand and everything else. How do you mess up a whole entire fucking planet? How? Like, these hurricanes are getting crazy, and I am extremely worried for anyone still in Milton's path, because when a weatherman starts crying on TV about the fucking storm being that bad, you're in trouble. Like, this ain't a game, this ain't no liberal propaganda, this ain't what, like, politics have brainwashed its own citizens so fucking bad, they don't even realize when they're in fucking danger anymore. You got people staying in the storm's path for TikTok clout and shit. It's crazy out here, man.
someone just asked me if I believe in climate change or if I think it's a hoax. And my response was, I don't really think I have an opinion. I'm just here for the vibes. And after I sent that, I was like, that is like the dumbest thing I could have possibly said. Like, I understand greenhouse gases and the need to like use cleaner energy or whatever. I don't think about it because like this may be really ignorant, but I can't like see it. I need to like see things to really like not care, but to really take it in and understand what's going on with it. But do you know what, comes to think of it, maybe I'm just here for the vibes is the right response for me. I don't know. Should I get educated on climate change? Like, what do you guys think?
Okay, please help me out here. So, Florida just had one of the biggest storms they've ever had. And people are losing their houses, losing their businesses, losing their lives. But Florida insists on voting for Trump over and over again, even though he doesn't believe in climate change and he thinks it's a hoax. So please, what is that about? That's crazy thinking. What is it going to take? Maybe Florida dropping off and falling into the ocean? You tell me.
Yeah, it's flooded after a rainstorm. But nah, I don't think it's global warming. I don't think global warming is real. I just think that the flooding happens because I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's the Democrats that are making the flood happen. Maybe they're in their flood machine making the floods worse, but I don't believe in global warming. Yeah, it's the Democrats with their storm machines, but I don't think it's global warming. I don't think global warming is real. I think that's something that the liberals came up with to make people vote Democrat and not want to be Republican anymore. Yup. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys watching the video today. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.